So the title of my talk is Why Should We Go Back to School? And you may wonder what these two images behind me have in common. One of them are the baby pictures of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, whose name is Prince George. And the other is the town where I grew up in Canada. It's a logging town, and it has 73 frost-free days every year. It's also the alcoholism capital of North America. And it's an interesting place that I don't go back to very often any longer. This is a photograph of my mother. She is a Canadian, and her mother was from the United Kingdom. She went back to work when I was 7 years old, and she was a receptionist in the doctor's office. This is a picture of my father. He's the sort of guy who would climb up telephone poles and fix the lines when they were broken. He was also a union leader. They didn't go to university. They did not expect me to go to university. And they didn't tell me to go to university. But my teachers did. When I was in school, Mrs. Cousins, Mr. Henham, they all told me that I should think about going to university. And I was a little bit worried because nobody in my family had been to university. And I also knew that we didn't come from the sort of background that could afford that. So I worked at a restaurant as a waitress, and I worked very hard, and people were very kind to me. So I did end up having the opportunity to go to university because I got a scholarship to do so. When I was thinking about going to university, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure what career I would follow. I didn't know if I would be, I knew I didn't want to climb telephone poles. I definitely knew that I didn't really want to be a receptionist in a medical thing. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I wanted to be a lawyer. I'd never met a real business person, so I didn't really entertain that as a thought. I had I'd met this man who's a psychologist called Dwayne Rubidoux, and he encouraged me to study psychology. So I went to university and I studied, I started my first subject was psychology. And thank God they allow you in Canada to change your major fairly easily, because I really wasn't suited at all to being a psychologist because it really worried me. I took home the problems with me and it disturbed me. I didn't sleep for a month because I was so disturbed about the people that I saw as when I was volunteering in the psych unit. So I changed into political science, and the man behind me showing here is Jean Leponce. And he told me that he thought that I should read something called The Economist. I'd never heard about it before. Canada, we didn't. And he said, I think you would like this. You should read it because it will tell you about the whole world. And I can see from your comments in class that you don't know about the whole world, but you should know. You should know about the whole world. So I started reading The Economist, and I loved it, and it was great. It changed my life. And in the fourth year, I started thinking about where I would go and what I would do. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. But I thought, well, maybe I'll keep on studying for a little while. I'll go to another university. I'll get a master's somewhere. And I was encouraged, at the time, they thought, I was encouraged to think about being a professor, and I still didn't know. So I thought, well, I'll come to the London School of Economics, which is what I did. And the London School of Economics was a wonderful place for me. In my class, there were 75 people, but they were from 28 different countries. And that was phenomenal to me. I'd never heard of some of those countries back then, even though I read The Economist. I probably didn't read all of the pages that I should have. But it was wonderful. It let me see the world from a different perspective. It let me meet people who saw the world differently. The picture of the person behind me, his name is Richard Caruso. He was at the London School of Economics doing his PhD in mentoring. And he said to me one day, "You're an entrepreneur." Now, this is the first time I'd ever heard the word entrepreneur, and I did not know if he was insulting me or complimenting me or just making an observation. I think he was making an observation. He said, well, just think about it. That's what I think you are. And he was one himself. Shortly after that, I became quite curious about what entrepreneurs did, since I was apparently one. And we had some case studies at the LSE. And one of the case studies was Dame Steve Shirley, who's pictured behind me. And I was fascinated by her case, and I was fascinated by the example that she led. She had started up a company, and it allowed women to program computers so that they could fix problems. And one of the things was interesting, she had changed her name from Stephanie to Steve, because when she signed off her letters as Stephanie, they didn't get answered, but when she signed them as Steve, they did get answered, so she just used the name Steve, which seemed a very practical way of going about things. When I was, after the LSE, I thought, well, I definitely think I need to program computers. So I started programming computers, just like the people who worked for Steve Shirley did. And I liked doing that. I did it for a couple of years. I probably wasn't the world's best programmer, but it gave me a lot of insights, and it was really helpful to me. I then went to work in corporate finance for a little while, and I enjoyed that, and I worked with a bunch of people who had MBAs. And I liked the way they thought. So I thought, well, I'll go have one of those. So I went off. So I managed to get a scholarship again, and I went off to Harvard Business School, where I studied business, and I studied entrepreneurship. And I studied 850 cases of people who had started up their own businesses. Some of the businesses that started up were huge. Some of them were small. Some of them were growing. Some of them were shrinking. Some of them were not for profit. Some of them were for profit. And I found them all fascinating. I joined as a student a number of different student-run organizations. They were everywhere there. And we invited entrepreneurs and people into the class using the convening power of the university to hear their story and to hear what they thought. And that was really good. By the time I'd finished the 2 years MBA, I had confidence, and I definitely knew that I wanted to start up my own business. So I did. It was 8 years after I'd been told that I was an entrepreneur. It took me a little bit of time and a lot of convincing and a lot of studying, but I thought I'd do it. And since then, I've started up a number of companies, and I've funded more than 53. And those currently employ tens of thousands of people in more than 70 countries, and the turnover last year was more than $3 billion. And the first one was a financial services. And I then became very interested in education and medical and life sciences and smashing that together with data. My first company was quite interesting because it solved problems for an industry, but our cost of delivering that service was 1/10,000th of the cost of our competitors, because we used technology in a really clever way. Over the last 15 years, however, during which time I had 3 children and got married and moved cities and did a few other things, I've become really alarmed and concerned about something. And I'm alarmed and concerned about the number of available jobs that there are. I know how many open positions we have at the companies that I have founded and that I've also funded. And I don't really understand how we can have 23% youth unemployment across the EU, let alone 50% in some countries. I don't understand how we can have 1 million new jobs that are being created in STEM subjects, and how we can have 5.8 million jobs that will be created in the next 4 years alone in people who create and design apps. I don't understand how it's possible that children come out of school and university prepared for jobs that were, not for the jobs that will be, or the jobs that are. And this is a problem that made me feel very nervous, and I wanted to try to change it. So 3 years ago, I started trying to change it. First, we started by bringing entrepreneurs like this to big auditorium, like here. But that presented for the teachers enormous difficulty, because they had to get, if the child was under 16, we had to get parental permission, and the teacher had to organize buses to bring them in. So we thought, well, what happened if we put the entrepreneurs into the classrooms? Goodness, do we have enough entrepreneurs to do that? Are there? But actually, entrepreneurs are everywhere. They're running businesses everywhere. 100% of the net new jobs created in the UK and in the US and across Europe were created by companies less than 5 years old. So entrepreneurs are everywhere. There are enough of us. So we started putting them into classrooms, and we only asked them to talk about the problem that they were solving, what they were thinking they might do when they were in high school themselves, and what they might do once they finished. And these are the people that we put into the jobs are the people who are currently creating jobs. And it's really quite exciting. So the good news is that 100% of the teachers who we've offered this solution to recommend it to others, and they are inspired by it. And they say that 96% of their kids report being inspired by it. And instead of feeling helpless at the world that is in front of them, they feel empowered. They know that they can be leaders. They know that they can create an app. They know that they can create a song that they might want to sing or might be invited to sing on this stage. They know that they could probably create a company if they could find a problem big enough that they wanted to solve, and they could persuade others to join them. And this is really exciting. Unsurprisingly to me, 54% of the kids decide that they actually want to, for the first time, study engineering or mathematics after one session in the classroom. Because suddenly they understand what's going on in the classroom and what they're studying and how it can help them do the things that they want to do and that they need to do and that we need them to do. Some of the people that we've put into the classrooms are people who are fascinated with technology. This is Ramesh. He has created a service that helps 2.4 billion people in India. He's created a little camera onto an iPhone that helps diagnose common problems, and they didn't have access to machines that allowed them to do the testing. The next is Julie Dean from the Cambridge Satchel Company. She was motivated to form her own company because her children were being bullied at school, and she wanted to find a solution to that. And the solution was to be able to have enough money to put them into another school. But this helped her. And now she distributes her satchels to hundreds, millions of people around the world. And this is one of my favorite stories. This is Lucinda. And she was fascinated by chemistry when she was a girl at school. And then she started to write recipe books. And to her horror and to her alarm, her third child had a food allergy that was so severe that he couldn't eat most food. So she started creating food for him that he could eat. And then the people at the school wanted to eat that food. And then the people in the village wanted to eat it. And now it's in several countries, and there are hundreds of millions of people that now have decent food because she was alarmed and she did something about it. So the reason we should all go back to school is because the world that is all around us has some problems that need to be solved. And what I wanted to share is that if you are a parent and you're concerned that the children your children are being trained for jobs that were rather than those that are or those that might be, then maybe you should think about talking to your teacher and telling them about the power that role models have in classes. And if you're a teacher, then for heaven's sake, you should think about the 100% of jobs that have been created now and the impact that, and you should let your kids know about what those jobs are. You should invite those role models into your classes. You should ask yourself at your careers fairs and your work experience and your internship things, are they from the company? Are they from the companies and from the people who are creating these jobs now? And if you're a student, you should think right now, what's the app that you're going to create? What's the company that you're going to create? What's the song you're going to sing? What's the book that you're going to write? Because the world is created by all of us around us every single day. And it's not a place where you should feel alarmed and feel that there's nothing you should do about it. You can make a difference. And the reason we are here is because people reached out and they did things before. And we can all do it, and we can continue to do it. That's why I think we should go back to school. Thank you.